Hello, everybody, and welcome to That's Football. We are here to talk Arteta at Arsenal are out of the Champions League, and predictably, there is all sorts of reaction. Embarrassing. Arteta needs to go. They should be proud. They fell short. PSG were better than them. So many things to discuss, Loz, and you're here to do it as well.
That's the way discussion works. I mean, I've seen you. I think you're pretty good with talking to yourself, but I like chatting to you. So thanks. Do you genuinely think that Arsenal were that bad?
No, I don't. I think it's funny. I looked at AFTV and I looked at their thumbnails, and a brief summary of it is this issue was caused by not signing a striker. We should be proud. Sack Arteta now. Saka's not world class. So the complete and utter breadth of opinion that you'd expect from a fan base. But I don't have a problem with that. It's their club. They can, everybody has hot takes and bad takes and good takes. But what I did find predictably ridiculous was when I was preparing for this show half an hour ago, I just had a look around mainstream outlets and social media influencers. And I'd say 99% of it, it's just lazy to, and some of it might be right, but it's, Arteta's under pressure. They were dominated, bottle jobs, take that Arsenal, embarrassing. But whether that be radio, TV, ex-players, it's just I find it so boring that's your reaction. Arsenal lose. I mean, I see content creators and people on TikTok doing it as well. When their rivals lose, they get the shades out, and I'm like, this is just so crap. It's such crap analysis. I just want somebody to talk about an honest opinion on the situation, because Arteta's not getting sacked. They're already buying players for him.
Sure.
You're judged on your league form. Sir Alex Ferguson always said that, and they finished second in the league. And across two legs, factually, it should have been a bit closer than it was. And that's probably because Arsenal don't have a striker. That was my assessment of it in a brief way. We can dig deeper.
Well, their finishing did let them down. I mean, that goal, the open goal that Saka missed, score that, and I think PSG are on the back foot, or at least you've got another couple of minutes. There's a bit of momentum with you, all those kind of things. I also think, broadly, Arsenal should have scored more than one last night, but here's the fact. Donnarumma. So I have a bit of a theory about Donnarumma. I don't think Donnarumma is an incredible goalkeeper. I think he's a very good goalkeeper, but I don't think he's incredible. I think he's big and he makes a lot of saves look very dramatic. And
that's save from Odegaard, though.
A good save, but I've got to admit, if it's that close to you as a goalkeeper, you should be getting down. You should be doing that.
Well, I know it's always that's a goal against Everton.
Yeah, and I know when you see the ball late, sure. And it's Champions League, but when a ball's that close to a keeper, I expect them to score to save that. I'm not saying he's not good, and I know a load of people can have a go at me in the chat, whatever. He's a good goalkeeper, but I think sometimes goalkeepers do players a bit of a favour by making it look more dramatic. Arsenal really should have finished. The Odegaard one, sure, it's just a stray shot, but there's another one where he sort of goes, and it goes off his knee, and it's just straight at him. But actually, the finish should have been better. The
Saka one, top corner.
The Saka, there's a bunch of really fine saves in there, but that's not my point. The point is Arsenal should have put them to the sword last night, and they didn't. And PSG are a very good side. They are slightly ahead of the curve. But I've got to admit, Arteta going around before the game and saying, I can't wait to beat him. I think my players are ready, all this kind of thing. I do think that sets them up for a bit of a fall. But I also have to ask, what else do you want him to say? Do you want him to say, it's 50-50. It's going to be a really tricky one. Like, I'd much rather hear a punchy manager setting up a fight, like, in a way that like a Muhammad Ali style, rather than you're kind of, he's a really good fighter. And, I'm just looking forward to the night sort of thing. No one wants that.
Yeah. And I think when you look back to that Conor Benn fight against Eubank, I feel that a little bit like Arsenal there. It's like, I said Eubank could win. Sure. But you don't put any context into the fact that it was an amazing fight, and at times it looked like Conor Benn was going to win. And I feel that's almost the lazy assessment of Arsenal that's irritating to somebody who actually wants to have a proper football conversation. Because PSG did win. So you can all do your told you so, and you can do your Arteta out, and you can say Arsenal are a banter club and bottlers and everything else like everybody does lazily. But the actual game was very different. I thought in the first half an hour, I thought Arsenal were absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm not big for stats, but even in the first leg, I was looking at this. So in the first leg, Arsenal had 10 shots with 5 on target. PSG had 11 with 4 on target. And then in the second leg, Arsenal had 19 shots with 4 on target to PSG's 11 with 6. So that's quite, and the possession was quite split as well. So I think the first leg, PSG were better. And I think in the second leg, Arsenal were probably better. And I think the scoreline should have been closer than 3-1 when you look at what happened in Barca against Inter. But I think the big thing for me, Loz, is that I still 100% see Arsenal as a work in progress. And I don't know at what point people think that Arsenal should be winning the league and the Champions League. I don't agree. I think you can't spend 9 months saying, why haven't Arsenal, 2 years, why haven't Arsenal bought a striker? And then say, bottlers, why have they not won it? Because I look at PSG, I know they don't play with a striker, but they have got one if they want to use it. It's systematic, it's a choice. Ramos is on the bench. Arsenal are clearly, in my opinion, and I might get roasted in the chat for it, you put Ollie Watkins in that team from January, I think the game against Liverpool at the weekend is still closer, maybe 6 points, and it's still there for Liverpool to win. And they might be in a Champions League final. And I genuinely think that one player makes a difference.
I've got to admit, I do agree with that. I do think getting a world-class striker fundamentally changes the side. And maybe they've been unlucky with injuries with Kai and with Gabriel Jesus.
I don't think they're good enough, though. I don't
that's
think
kind
they're
of
good enough. Yeah.
That was going to be my next point. Is like maybe Kai Havertz changed things a little bit because he's that system striker that you were just talking about, where they don't really play with the traditional striker. Gabriel Jesus, I mean, does he come on and change that game? Not fundamentally. Obviously, the actual move changes, but I don't know if it changes enough in that time. Maybe you can make the argument that, that would be their weakness. But I think Gabriel Jesus drops too deep, probably gets taken out of the game by Vitinha. I think Kai Havertz is probably a better match. He's got the height, he's got the movement. They ghosted in on a few things against PSG and it really worked. So maybe you've got that argument there. But I also think, if Arsenal are leaving it until January to get Ollie Watkins, for me, that shows poor planning more than anything else. And it speaks to more of your idea of the work in progress thing. But the problem is now, Arteta's going into his 6th year. Fair enough. I think, the fact he's been there for 6 years is an endorsement of what he's done at Arsenal. And again, people forget how bad it was at Arsenal when he came in. I think a lot of people don't maybe see how far he's brought them. That's a fair assessment, I think, of Arsenal. And on top of that, I think there was a high expectation for them to win it this season, because at the end of last season, it was like, okay, well, we'll kick on. Okay, well, we will go on. These guys have got the experience now. And at one point it was like, well, maybe Arsenal don't have the experience of a title run in. Maybe they don't have the experience of catching City, all these kind of things. Maybe, I'm not going to have another repeat of the same podcast. My daughter almost got in the room there. Maybe you get to a point where, look, it's time for you to deliver. And, he made these, those quotes the other day where it was about Liverpool have won the league with less points than we had. Yeah. The only reason that's happened there, Mikel, is because you dropped away early. It's because your Arsenal side, who were expected to deliver, did not deliver. And he said it's about being in the right place at the right time. Yeah, but the whole point of being in the right place at the right time is you put yourself there. You work to get to that right place, right time. It's the same people who go, I could do what Mark Goldbridge does. I could sit there. I could sit there and talk if I wanted. I could sit there and, they don't get that you have to be there consistently week in, week out. You have to do all the big games. You have to sacrifice family time. You have to sacrifice a lot of your evenings. They don't understand the work that goes into this stuff. And I think that's kind of the point, is he's talking about if, buts and maybes. And as a manager, I've got to admit, it was the first time where I heard him speak and I thought, I don't know if you back yourself as much as you used to. I think you are doubting yourself. I saw him at the beginning of the second half, and I know, TV dictates a lot, right? Tell me, when you were watching the TV feed, did you see him doing that thing where he was going?
No, I didn't.
Okay, there was a long shot of him just doing that, and I thought, does that look like a man who believes his team are about to go out there and perform in the second half? Or does it look like a man who's biding his time and going, yeah, I've not actually done what I need to do here?
Yeah, and I think I think there's two things I'd say. One, to all the Arsenal fans that are Arteta out, that's your choice. It's your club.
I think
I'm
you're
just telling
silly,
you.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Name one person you
exactly.
get in. Name someone you get in. And Antonio Conte, no, not going to happen. Thomas
The
Tuchel, no, not going to.
Nagelsmann's not going before the World Cup, so yeah,
Nagelsmann's not going there. You're not going to tempt Klopp away from whatever it is that Klopp's doing with RB in general. Like, just come on, guys. We know we can criticize Mikel Arteta now, but at the same time say I still think he's the best option for Arsenal. It's not you're either great or terrible. Like, it can be in between, right?
Yeah, and also I think we had it with Ten Hag, and there is still people doing it with Amorim. And I understand that, look, everybody has different levels of thinking,
Sure.
and I don't understand the fan who, knowing maybe they're not intelligent enough to know, but I'll tell them they're not sacking Arteta. You can
Right.
you can get your t-shirts out, you can sing it as loud as you like for the last few games. They're not sacking Arteta,
No, I
and the
agree.
reason is because they still believe in him. They still believe in the project, and they have actually got players lined up for him in the summer. So for them to sack him, they've got to pay him off. They've got to pay a new manager in, and then they've got to abandon all their transfer plans. They've got to unsettle the squad that like him. It's just not going to happen. So I never
I
understand the
agree.
people who go, who will spend the next few days and weeks screaming and shouting Arteta out. I feel sorry for them in a way, because they're either really naive or they're just making themselves miserable.
Do
What
they
I would,
believe what they're saying, do you think? Do a lot of these people who advocate Arteta out believe what they're saying? Or do you think it's easy to be
content.
negative until something bad happens? So if you scream Arteta out for long enough, for 5 years, in the end he will leave and you'll go, oh, he was terrible. If he stays and wins the league, you go, I was Arteta out, but that got the best out of him.
Yeah,
That's what people do.
I think that last one's very true. I think there are people who think that their opinion is important, and they can go, "Hey, hold on a minute. I know the Premier League exists, and here comes Ancelotti and Declan Rice is, but 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 I will be the guy that everyone remembers that said will be proven right, and I was
Sure.
first to say it." I mean, it means absolutely nothing. I think that the look, I think Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, whatever. I think the fans who go against their manager, there's probably a number of reasons they do it. I think some of them just do it for content, but also I think
Sure.
a lot of them just do it because they're impatient. We live in an impatient society, and I think that they make their minds up way too soon, and get locked in on that, a stubbornness. Whereas again, I don't really think like that. I think I can make my mind up about a player, but if they have a few good games, I'll be like, maybe they've turned the corner. But I
I've
think
got
the
to
thing,
admit, though, Mark, I've got to admit, I know you're probably going to make a really good point. I think there were a few players who didn't turn up for Arsenal last night, and the big question should actually be on individuals rather than on Arteta. I know Arteta's responsible for priming them or whatever it is. I think Mars Lewis Skelly is still a very young player, so I'm going to hold off on him. I think he's actually good in this position. I think he'll find his place in the team. I think Declan
very young,
Rice,
yeah.
yeah, I think Declan Rice, I would say that the time for a world-class midfielder to turn up is a game like last night. And I heard a lot of his name, and he was kind of like the pass before the pass. But I felt they should have put it more on other people. And the reason Declan Rice had to step up was because I think Partey was quite weak last night.
Oh,
And
he was
obviously,
terrible on that third
but
goal.
on the third goal, I think that lets Arsenal
Second
down.
goal, yeah, whatever.
It's the third goal in the tie overall. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then I also got to admit, I think Martinelli was pretty poor.
He was
Last
bad
night.
on the first goal as well.
Yeah,
Same.
and he let them down, not only in terms of that, but I think, if people are busy saying Saka's not world class, part of the reason they can focus so much on Saka and lock him down, which, by the way, has also been done multiple times to Salah in this competition. A lot of people have been locked down by PSG on that right-hand side, is because he doesn't have people who are dangerous enough to make defenders worry. They can go, cool, Martinelli's there. Anyway, let's focus on Saka. And that's why they can do that. Now, you would say maybe that's because of limited resources at Arsenal ever. I don't think they squeezed the best out of what Arsenal had last night. And, Vitinha, Neves, and Maurice, that's an incredible midfield. But at the start of the season, I would have said to you, Declan Rice is world class. Martin Odegaard is world class. They could probably have brought on someone else last night as well. Obviously not in the central midfield area. But even then you look at it and you think, what could they have done with Mars Lewis Skelly in midfield? Could they, is there just something else they could do? They just didn't maximize it. And I think it comes down to personnel. On the night, I think Arsenal underperformed. and that's on their individuals' heads. Kivior, by the way, is. I mean, I just don't think he's of the level that he needs to be to play at Arsenal. It's that simple.
No, I think Arsenal. Look, if I was an Arsenal fan, you're going to be disappointed this morning. But there's a few things I would say. One, I think if you're in this position this time next year, everybody would agree that you've probably got to look at Arteta, because what you're about to do in the summer is probably bring Zubimendi in, who solves
that's a fundamental
massive problems.
Yeah.
And then the world-class striker that you mentioned, that makes a difference. And you may well bring a winger in that pushes Martinelli out of the team. Those three changes will be a new season before you know it. And you'll be assessing that season, and then the season will run its course, and then you will be in a position where I think everybody would agree that there might be an opportunity for Arteta to go. But I suspect you'll be in a position where you've got to change your mind and go, fair play, I was wrong, and we should have been patient.
Well, Zubimendi's great. I mean, Zubimendi at a better club, I think we're really interested to see. Striker, we both know all the problem that just solves their goal scoring problem, as far as I'm concerned. Especially if you've got guys like an out and out, like you're right about the Ollie Watkins, or just honestly, mate,
even a Mateta,
If Arsenal had 10 more goals this season, it's a different season.
Yeah,
and Liverpool always talk about the margins with Klopp, and where it's like, well, if we'd have had one more goal in this game, or one more match we've won there, he'd have 3 Premier League titles, and you know what I mean. I think I'm worried it could be the same for Arteta when he ends up leaving Arsenal, where it was like, if you'd have had Osimhen, I'm literally naming a person who can kick a ball in the net. That's as simple as it is. Even if it's just a simple backup. Divock Origi, do you know what I mean? It's that simple.
I don't think some Arsenal fans understand how basic it is. It's just someone who can put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, there was a point in the game last night where Saka puts a wonderful cross in. There's no one anywhere near it.
No.
And you're just going, any half decent striker is going to make that move. And that's why Saka's, and he threw his hands in the air, because he's sort of like, I've done my job. I've done my job. I can't. And that needs to change. But I suppose another positive for Arsenal is that all the time when we had Sir Alex Ferguson, he would say, your season is judged on where you are in the league. And Liverpool have won the league, but you are second in the league. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, if Spurs win the Europa League, have they had a better season than Arsenal? Now, I have an answer on this, but I will let you, because I know you're going to ask me about the Champions League anyway, whether I like it or not. But have Arsenal had a worse season than Spurs if Spurs win the Europa League?
No. I mean, winning... You can't have a worse season than a team that you never aspire to win that competition. So silverware is not just silverware. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I know it buys you more time or whatever, but the reason that the FA Cup is so important still to Arteta is because that at the time said it was a statement of intent. It was not a statement of ability. It was a statement of the club is going up. Arsenal never, and I can't say this strongly enough, aspire to win the Europa League. If they aspire to win the Europa League, they've lowered the club expectations. So maybe on a basic level, yes, it will be better because you'd have been successful. But it's the same as if someone says to me, it's like when I say to you, Mark, I'm looking to get 20k views on a video. You don't look at me and go, you're an idiot. You look at me and go, well done for aspiring, mate. That's not my aspiration. My aspiration, your aspiration is 500,000 views on a video, 1 million views on a video. Do you know what I mean? It's not that you're looking down on me, but I've not had a better YouTube day than you when I get the 20k views that I want if you've only got 200. Like, our aspirations are different.
Yeah.
That's why.
I think the reason I asked the question, I think a lot of people in the chat will have a very big opinion on the next two things we're going to talk about, and hopefully the last 15 minutes. But there are a lot of Arsenal fans saying that Spurs have had a better season than us if they win the Europa
don't know
League.
if you're an Arsenal fan if you're saying that. I don't know.
I think they're lashing out though. I think that it might be the Arteta out people who are going that. Yeah,
lash out, like let it out, mate. Just come on, give us a hug. Just give us something. And you can be on your way. You've had your therapy session. Some thoughts, by the way, could just stay inside you. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like this is the sort of thing where a talk sport producer is on the underground on the way to work, and this pops in their head, and they go, "This is going to bang. This is going to bang." Get Simon Jordan to talk about this. Have Spurs had a better season than Arsenal? And then he goes, "Yes." and then we get loads of views. Because ultimately, I agree with you. If you're judging it on trophies, of course Spurs have had a better season. They're holding up a trophy. And if you're an Arsenal fan that, you know, values holding up trophies more than anything, then Spurs have had a better season than you. But if it's about status, anybody with a brain knows that winning the Europa League, a trophy Arsenal can't enter, doesn't make Spurs' season better than finishing second in the league and getting to a Champions League semi-final. Status-wise, Arsenal are better.
Who do Spurs have to beat?
Bodo Glimt, Lazio, Man United, or
Thank you. There we go. So think about that. Like, they have to beat a very, very good side to get there. And I genuinely think I don't know how many of those teams I see Spurs beating.
Yeah, I understand the trophy argument, but for me that's quite shallow because it's like status. As I said, look, it was on the overlap talking about this on the United stand. They were moaning about the Manchester United. In fact, we may as well do this now. Actually, they were moaning about Manchester United being a disgrace in the Premier League. How Arsene Wenger had said you shouldn't be going from the Europa League into the Champions League, and then Roy Keane was saying, it's all about the money. What's the point in being in a tournament that you can't win? It's just all about the money. But the reality is that is football. And while they've got Sky Bet in the corner and they're moaning about money in football, the irony is incredible because that is it. And what I'm about to say is probably going to annoy people, but I'm probably at the point now where if I'm offered fourth place or the FA Cup as a Man United fan, I'm going to take fourth place.
Fourth place is good. Fourth place is, I know you're not winning the league, but I remember as a Liverpool fan under Benitez, I remember thinking, wow, like fourth place gets us into the Champions League. And the weird thing is, we talk about seasons in such isolation. Why aren't you talking about the fact that fourth place means that what you've guaranteed for at least 3 months is an adventure in Europe that you're going to love? Is like that you're going to have some great moments where you go, oh my God, tonight we're playing PSG or whoever. It's the hope of it. Weirdly.
The money as well.
But we'll think of it as, the cash, obviously. But what about the fact that the reason that Arsenal will be happier with this season than Spurs will is Spurs could win the Europa League and still sack their manager. Arsenal can lose the Champions League, lose the Premier League, because I think at the start of the season, those were both their aspirations, keep their manager, improve their team, and go into next season thinking, wow, we've really got something to compete for here. Spurs could win the Europa League and go, well, that's us for the next 5 years.
Yeah. And I think, look, you know, there will be people who completely disagree and say, I'll always take a trophy. And I get that. And it can be context as well. I think if you're Aston Villa, you probably would take a trophy over fourth place because you haven't won a trophy in a long while. Yeah. But as a Man United fan, I am going to take fourth place over the FA Cup because it's not my fault that the FA Cup that existed when I was a kid and was a whole big day doesn't exist anymore. And that teams in the third round who are from the mid-table in the Premier League put their reserves out. I'm sorry, they devalued the FA Cup, not me. If money and clubs devalue the FA Cup, then I'm not an idiot, despite what people say. I'm going to go, the Champions League, nobody devalues the Champions League. Like everybody goes how amazing it is. You know, they play their strongest teams. It's the best teams in Europe. So would I rather win the FA Cup, that's a fossil cup that everybody used to care about, or would I rather
by the way, it used to get you into Europe, didn't it? It used to do something. It used to do like a little, if you win the I think if you win the League Cup or the FA Cup, it was like you get to go and compete in, all that sort of thing. Yeah. And that the Cup Winners' Cup, why don't we have things like that? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff where I think, this could be better, guys. By the way, genuine question. A lot of people haven't started asking it yet, so we can be the first. Was the Champions League better this season? Was it different? What was good about it?
I don't think it's been. Look, I like the knockout stage. The knockout stage of the Champions League is always the place where it gets going. And I think semi-finals, as soon as Real Madrid went out, it got really interesting because they normally win it. So I thought Liverpool being knocked out as well was quite interesting, having finished top of the league stage. So I think the knockout stage, brilliant. And I think having these two in the final is really refreshing because they're not established teams and they're sort of like, you know, they're not fancy teams. In relation to the league stage, I do think it needs tweaking. And this is where I bring Arsenal back in because what I don't understand is you have, was it 36 teams in it?
Yeah.
And the bottom 12 disappear.
Yeah.
So if you finish in the top 24, the top 8 go through, and then the next 16 play a group game. So it is a bit odd to me that Liverpool can finish so high and then be out, but that's knockout football. I understand that. But what I really found odd is that PSG were 2 points from going out altogether. I think they finished like 16th or something like that.
Right.
But what I don't get, and I think they do need to change this, is that Arsenal finished 4th and in both knockout games had the away leg, second leg away.
Yeah.
And I just think that, like, Real Madrid didn't finish in the top 8, PSG didn't finish in the top 8, but they got the second leg at home in the quarterfinals and the semis. It can't be that much problem for AI or a computer to say if you finish in the top 8, you will get home ties in the knockout stage. And obviously, if you finish 7th and you play Liverpool, who finish 2nd, they will get the priority. I just think that the league stage doesn't make enough sense to me. There's not enough incentive. So I just think if you finish in the top 8, you should always get the second leg at home.
I get that. I think that is nitpicking to an extent, though. I think the rest of it, I've got to admit, I know a lot of people were criticizing it. I think it made me more invested broadly across the whole competition, because normally, obviously, what you do is you do your group watch, don't you? Where you're like, oh, well, we won this and we need to see who else in our group is doing this. It means you do look at a wider amount of games. And it also means that you are looking at the whole table rather than sort of I remember as a kid, 2005's kind of time, I'm looking at that and going, they're elite. There are some I'm not going to watch here. There are some I am going to watch. Don't really care about this one. Now you're looking at the whole table, and that last day when anyone could have got in or anyone could have got out, I do think that's more compelling. And I've got to admit, like, as a Liverpool fan, obviously I was gutted to go out to PSG, but I think that play-in thing where you have to play to get into the next round, I think that's really compelling as well. And on top of that, I think we've just gone through the best week of Champions League football. Like I don't think goals mean quality. I think if anything, a lack of goals or kind of less goals means quality, but that's not the point. The point is it's the semi-finals are the best point of any competition. The finals actually often a bit of a, not a damp squib, but a bit of a letdown, a bit of a, well, it's all done. You don't have anything to look forward to afterwards. I like the semi-final 2 legs, like this week. That's apex for me. That's the best week in the football season.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. And I think next season will be very interesting to see second season of the league stage, because I think it was hard to get your head around. And some clubs like Real Madrid and PSG did probably fall foul of a first year tournament, and Man City. And I think it hopefully will be better next year, because actually it's hard to get the best 8 in the top 8. And if people realise that Man City didn't even get through, so through that qualifier, Real Madrid were out quite early as well.
They did play. Didn't they play Real Madrid though? Man City. So that felt a little bit.
Yeah. But that's because PSG and Bayern Munich, I think, were in there as well, weren't they?
Yeah, that was a pretty big hitters. That's what makes it good.
Yeah. So I think that teams might take it a little bit more seriously next year. It's a long league format, but it does need jeopardy. Yeah.
Final question then: who's going to be good in the league format next season out of the top 5 that we have at the moment? Because Liverpool obviously dominated it this year. I won't expect them to dominate it every year. Arsenal, I think, are a solid top 4. I think City are massively improved. Newcastle probably in there, considering their points total at the moment. Chelsea, I think Chelsea have got like this weird thing where if they add one more piece, they could be really like they'll just go and just beat these sides just through being almost just playing them into boredom and then scoring a couple of goals. I think Chelsea will make it through next year. I think quite easily as well.
I think Chelsea and Man City are going to be massively hindered by this Club World Cup. I do really think
that's a lack of a pre-season, or a lack of a real pre-season, basically. Yeah.
But I've seen it with England over the years. We tend to be very good. Premier League teams seem to be very good between September and Christmas. There's something about our fitness levels that just seem to put us through. And obviously that fits in with the league format. But
it's a good narrative.
I think, I don't forget Man United could be in there as well. Although I did see a certain pundit on a radio station, say that if Man United are in the Champions League next year, it's going to embarrass England. I mean, I don't know what year they think it is. Is it 1945 now? Are we that patriotic about people are walking around the next day when Man United lose to Benfica? Well, they've embarrassed England. I tell you what, they've embarrassed me walking around in your Union Jack shorts. I mean, who gives a shit about that?
But I mean, also the fact that they're just in the Champions League. I mean, it's not great for UEFA. It makes UEFA look a bit silly because Manchester United just had a bad season. But if anything, it's a good thing for England. It shows how strong the league is. It shows we can have a team who have had a terrible season here, but done well in. Like, what are you talking about? It's the opposite.
UEFA will be desperate for Man United to be in that tournament because it's the only tournament we can be in. We won't be in Europe at all. So they will want Man United in it. The same they'd want Real Madrid in it or Liverpool in it. They will want us in it. So we're not going to embarrass anybody. The UEFA will be going, thank God you're here. So, and I look, as we've seen with Arsenal, some would say Arsenal embarrassed England last night. I mean, these silly mate. Things are just incredible.
But it's also funny because I imagine Manchester United, you do want them at the party, but at the moment they're not. They're like those ones that before they get to the party, everyone's going, you ever seen Man United recently? Yeah, they're looking a bit, the beard. The way people talk about me before I turn to a party, the beard and the hair and probably lose a couple of pounds. You're right, mate? Yeah, good to have you. Yeah, really good. Should we get a few drinks?
You're back.
Yeah,
you're back. Yeah, you bounced back.
But well done to you as well. Yeah. Oh, and you are here. Yeah. You can, for the Champions League. What, you weren't even. Oh, you won at the other party downstairs. Yeah. Okay. No, you can come back. Yeah.
That's the legitimate ticket. Now. It's not fraudulent. It is here.
Well, maybe just check it anyway. Can we rescan it, mate? Yeah. Turns out.
You know what?
Real. Yeah. Did you get this off another team?
You know, the funny thing is about that though is that, you know, again, it's just the laziness of the mainstream punditry again to say, oh, even if United do win the Europa League, they're just going to embarrass England next year. Hold on a minute. Since it's very rare that a team from April in one season is the same team in October of the next season. There's a whole thing called pre-season and a transfer window. And I think that if United play like they did this season and the next year, then we will embarrass England if that's the thing. Won't. But we'll have a pre-season with a manager who's going to move a lot of players on, hopefully get a few players in, and there will surely be a very, very different Man United side next season, which I think will benefit from playing in Europe. Because as we've seen with Man United and Spurs in the Europa League, there is a very I don't know whether you saw this comment from Enrique, and I thought I'll let him off because they've just won the game and they've played really, really well. But he said he was asked about the fact that they've beaten
Liverpool,
Villa, Liverpool, and Arsenal,
and Man City
from a Farmers League. And I went, hold on a minute, mate, that's got no relevancy here. You're PSG. You've dominated that Farmers League for a decade because you're PSG. Yeah. Don't start talking about you representing the French league. You don't represent the French league. You're in the French league. You don't represent the French league.
The rule.
Yeah, no other French team is going to do what PSG's done until somebody does what PSG have done. Okay, Lyon got to a quarterfinal and we beat them in extra time.
Lyon got to a quarterfinal and lost to the worst Manchester United side of arguably the last. I mean, maybe they're not the worst. I think
who was 16th in the Premier League.
Yeah, a very bad Manchester United. Doesn't matter if they're the worst or the best, but they lost to a Manchester United side who are very, very poor, or at least have had no confidence. Whatever you want to say, just not the best Manchester United team. So don't tell me that Liga is better. It's not a bad thing that Liga isn't the Premier League. All right, it's different. I enjoy watching Liga. But don't do all this thing about the French have got this real thing, like a craw in their claw, or whatever you want to call it, of, oh, the British are so arrogant and all that. I had a conversation last night. Do you remember we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago? We got clipped up by a couple of different people. I did have a conversation last night with someone about this idea, who clipped us up, about this idea that the England isn't the best league in Europe. And I said, every manager comes here and goes, it's much harder than you think. And it's like, mate, I think it's really hard. So how hard is it really? Like, it's intense. Like all the things that you don't want the league to be, the Premier League is, if you're a manager, as in terms of difficulty. I know that, the passing and stuff in La Liga is good, but, come on, it's the hardest league.
Just because we're not winning the Champions League doesn't mean we haven't got the best league.
It's a knockout cup competition. And also, we're knackered by the time we get to this point in the season.
And Real Madrid have proved this, and Barcelona have proved this many a time, and Bayern Munich have proved it, and PSG have proved it. You can be the best team in Europe from a league that's nowhere near as good as some of the best leagues in the world. But what has been proved this year is that we're going to have 5 teams in the Premier League because we've got a strong league and we've performed in Europe. And that's why one of those, the 5th place, gets given. Yeah. And also in the Europa League, we've got 2 maybe in the final, unless Spurs or Man United bottle it. But also, Manchester United, I've watched Man United this season. In the Premier League, we are where we deserve to be. Palace, Bournemouth have beaten us. Every Europa League game I've watched, we're unbeaten.
Yeah.
And we played some, obviously we're not played PSG and everything, but we're playing Lyon. We shouldn't have drawn in Lyon. We should have won 2-0. We shouldn't have let them back in. Yeah. And Arna just felt a bit like, thought it was Christmas,
Maybe I shouldn't have said something mean.
Bilbao, best defense in Europe, in the top 4 in La Liga, with 3-0 up at half time. And people saying, well, the red card, but that was a penalty, and that would have been 2-0 anyway before the sending off.
I was going to say the red card came. It wasn't as if it was 0-0 and that completely changed the game.
It would have been 2-0
well into their stride by then. Yeah, and that's totally. I totally agree about that. I think
Premier League's the strongest league in the world. It's the strongest league in the world, but it might not have the best team in the world. That's the thing.
But top to bottom, the Premier League, top to 17, it is still the best league in the world. And then I think relegation zones are always exception points. And I think PSG pretending that they represent the whole of Ligue 1 it's the same as someone saying, well, Mark Goldbridge represents all YouTubers. It's like, it's not the same thing. Mark lives in, he actually lives in the Caribbean, and he just doesn't tell people. And he actually lives in it. He's got a mansion in Jamaica. And it's palatial, isn't it? It's the biggest place I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's an island, really.
It's not, it's your own private island. You take a little boat out there in the evening, you kind of James Bond it and sort of go over to the island. You have a little rum and coke, and then just head back in your little.
I'm trying to get a couple more so I can call it the Goldbridge Islands.
That's brilliant. Yeah. It's called the Gold Islands. Yeah, and you build a little bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. I love that. Can I help with the bridge?
I know you're struggling for work, so yeah. Although I did really, people should go and listen to the podcast you did with Ginge. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've had a few. Do you know what I realized? I keep doing podcasts where people go, yeah, you've really had a good comeback there. And I'm like, well, I did one with Goldbridge a year ago. Was that not the comeback, or is there?
That was a good one as well.
Yeah, that was a great one. You should go listen to that. I had long hair then. It was a difficult thing.
It'd be better if you'd had the haircut, really.
Yeah.
They got you without the haircut, which I think was a little bit better.
Well, we should do another one then. I'll ask you a bunch of questions about how.
Well, we were talking off air. I've got one I definitely want to do. I've got lists. It's not like Father Ted where I'm just going to, have the last laugh thing, but I have got a list of things I really want to get out there. But hopefully I'll be able to do that over the summer.
Yeah.
Pleasure as always. Lots for people to get their comments in on, and you're playing Arsenal at the weekend, Loz. I mean, what an anti-climax that is.
Guard of Honor. How do you? Can we finish on Guards of Honor? Do you have a particular take? I think I'm sick of seeing big pundits saying, "Oh, it's humiliating." Yeah, mate. Yeah, that's why it's a Guard of Honor. But if you can't put your ego to the one side for a second and use it as motivation, maybe it's not the Guard of Honor that's the problem.
I think the Guard of Honor is humiliating. I do agree, and that's why I like it. I think,
but that's my point. Yes, exactly.
This is basically you are, and even better if you have to do it to a rival, because it's basically a really big thing that should motivate you over the summer and say, I never want to do that again.
Exactly.
And we use it every season. We use it every game of the season and say, we're never doing this again. I mean, look, we had it with Van Persie when he went back to Arsenal, and they did it for him. Like it was brilliant. We live in a world like that now, don't we? Where you can't flaunt success. Oh no, if you can't win the school sports day race because it's not fair on the kid who can't run. And I don't mean it from a disabled.
No, just can't run quickly. They just can't go as quick. Yeah. Because they'll have their own competition, and they'll be absolutely killing it in that. They'll be allowed.
They might be really good at wrestling because they put a bit of weight on or something.
Exactly, and there's plenty of kids who can do different competitions. But you don't, just because you can't win the running race because, you're a little bit taller or shorter than everyone else, doesn't mean you're not good at shot put.
Hmm.
Can I just suggest one thing?
Go on then.
Can I suggest something? So did you watch the Masters?
I watch golf.
No.
Do I look like I?
You and I look like we could have a good round of golf between us, but that's not the point. I watched the Masters, and have you ever watched the Tour de France?
God, no.
Okay, so they
bike racing.
They both.
I've got a bike ride. I'm not going to watch people bike race.
I would love that as a YouTube video. They have.
They have cornered the market.
Yeah, but you can do just the cycling BK and get a Burger King wherever you go.
Yeah, he you know what? He loves it so much. He even has a bike in his room where he does the
Bikes.
AI biking against other people
Yeah.
with a fan on him.
That's why he looks like such. He's in great shape, Ben. I mean, Ben's jawline is something to behold.
Yeah.
I think, and I'll just finish on this, I think the team that win the Premier League should be allowed to wear a gold jersey for the rest of the season, or like a special jersey. So when they play, everyone has to go, oh, wow, look at that. Like the Guard of Honor is one thing, but we don't get to, like, we have to watch you doing that. We should get a gold Liverpool jersey that then we're like, you know, everyone wears and we look amazing in it. No?
Yeah, you wouldn't win the league next year though, because it'd just be a big target, wouldn't it? Be like,
but that's what you want. You want a bit of when they played the league champions, and on Sky Sports, you know, when they do like the, you know, 2025, looking back in 40 years, they go, you can tell those people were champions that week or whatever, because they wore the gold jersey. It's historic.
There you go. Get your comments in. Thanks very much, Loz.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everybody. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe, and we'll speak to you on the next one.